we're talking nutrition today. We are gonna jump right in because we got a lot to cover. And as people show up, they show up. And if you're catching this on the replay, strap yourself in because we're about to go wild. Yeah, Joe. Here we go. Okay. Nutrition and hydration. All right. This is a massive topic that to fit into 1 hour in a 12-week course was a challenge. But as I was creating this content, I kind of kept coming back to what's our goal here? What's our goal here with this program? And that is optimizing brain and body function so that we can find flow. So at the end of the day, that's what the outcome here is that we're looking for. To perform at our peak on demand, so creating the body and the brain capacity in order to access that high energy state when we need it most. So that's what this nutrition conversation is going to be around. A lot of it will be stuff you probably already know, but we got to hit those big rocks first, okay? But then we're going to get into some more interesting things that you may not have heard before that are focused primarily on the metabolism and how the brain uses fuel. So here's our game plan. We're going to hit the high level stuff first. We're going to talk about body fat and how much of a killer it is to your performance. Okay. Then we'll talk a little bit more about brain fuel and feeding, how that works. And then we'll get into a little bit of a pro-metabolic eating philosophy. And after that, we'll touch on hydration and some neuro drills to help with digestion. Okay. So first of all, a word on biohacking, because many of us that are trying to perform at our peak, we get drawn into this world of biohacking because it seems pretty sexy, right? And it's like, ooh, I can use this one little tool to hack my biology and get better results. Well, sometimes. And I have a quick little story about this. I went over to a friend's house when I was actually living in LA years ago, at the very start of my health and fitness kind of journey back to that health and fitness world. And I went over there and he is in his kitchen and he's boiling broccoli sprouts. And he looked like a mad scientist. And I walk in, I'm like, what are you doing? And he goes on to explain to me about how you have to boil the broccoli sprouts to precisely 158 degrees Fahrenheit in order to get the sulforaphane and some other molecule out of it at its highest concentration. And he's like over there at the same time, like loading all these pills that he's making and taking like handfuls of supplements. And the ironic thing is the dude hasn't slept for 2 days because he's been just working his ass off, and he hasn't worked out in a week. And yet he's over here trying to like hack his biology. And it's like, there's a disconnect here. And so the point is like, we say, don't major in the minors, right? Biohacking is kind of that long tail things that you can look at when you've got everything else optimized. Like you got to get those big rocks taken care of and really dialed in before you even look at any of that. That's kind of the point here. So biohacking really is just a big, humongous industry where they can push new, awesome products, right? In order to get you spending more money on this novel new thing that's supposedly going to help you do whatever. But really, if we're not taking care of those big things first, none of that stuff's going to matter. So that's the word on biohacking. I'll get off my soapbox for a little bit. Here's kind of the 80-20 of health, okay? This is where I want you to keep coming back to when things seem out of that optimization spot. Always come back to this kind of pyramid right here. How am I sleeping? Okay, that's the most important thing for performance. Number 2 is your nutrition. Okay, then 3 is exercise. We've all heard you can't exercise your way out of a bad diet, right? And you can't eat your way out of bad sleep. It goes in that hierarchical fashion. And then what you get out of it is psychological well-being. All these things kind of add to that, okay? Nutrition 101. This is the basics and how we're going to break it down. Number 1, at the bottom of that pyramid, take out the stuff that's causing problems. Avoid intolerances. Okay, if you need to do an elimination diet where you actually take out foods that tend to cause sensitivities like gluten, dairy, any high inflammation foods. We'll talk about polyunsaturated fats in a second. But these things that are known to cause inflammation in the body, just take them out of your diet and reintroduce them slowly to see if they're causing problems. The biggest thing you can do for your health is just to avoid the things that are causing threats to your system. Okay, that's number one. Then we can look at the calories in, calories out equation and how many of these macronutrients are you intaking. Overeating is a bad idea. Undereating, equally bad. Okay, so we need a certain amount of food each day to maintain our basal metabolic rate. And then we can play with the ratios after that based on what we're trying to do. Are we trying to gain or are we trying to lose? Be in a deficit. The ratio of carbohydrates to fats to protein, not as important as the overall calories, at least in the beginning. And then we definitely want to look at, once you hit that milestone, how much protein am I getting? How many carbs and fats? How can I vary up those intakes in order to perform at my best? And then after all of that is taken care of, then we can look at your micronutrients, right? Vitamins, minerals, making sure that I'm hitting all of these markers and supplementing when needed. So again, big rocks first, okay? Now, when we talk about intolerances, a lot of times these will show up, and an easy way to know if they're showing up is we having digestive type issues, okay? And this is an optional thing that you can do, but this is how we can actually test how your digestion is working and how your metabolism is responding to the foods that you eat. Okay, much like we use the assess and reassess process with our range of motion, we can use heart rate and temperature to test your metabolism after you ingest food. So, really easy way to do it. Of course, I just moved and I boxed up my pulse oximeter somewhere. You know what a pulse oximeter is? Yeah? Yeah, okay, Joe does. If you don't, it's the little thing that you put on your finger. Like if you go to a hospital or a doctor, they put it on your finger. It measures your heart rate. It measures your perfusion index, right? Which is a measure of blood and oxygen that's getting to the extremities, right? Also your oxygen saturation in your blood. What we really care about in this context is your heart rate, right? So you can use your smartwatch too for that. This one tends to be a little more accurate. You can, if you are seasoned in taking your pulse, do that way. That's great. The other thing you want to measure is your temperature. Okay, I just have one that you stick close to your forehead, tends to work fine. You can use under the tongue, the sublingual. You can use a rectal thermometer. I don't care what you use. You just need to measure your temperature. You want to measure this, and you're looking for trends over time. Okay, that's the first thing. Now, if we look at the bullets here, your lowest temp and heart rate should be upon waking, when you're at rest, right? As your body temperature starts to rise as you get up in the morning from sleep. So that's a good measure to start with to track, okay? Then, before you eat, measure it again, write it down. 20 minutes after you eat, that's when you want to measure to see how you're responding to food. Okay, a healthy metabolism, your heart rate and your temperature should both go up with each meal. You're looking for an increase of 0.5 degree Fahrenheit. I don't know what that is in Celsius. Don't even ask. It's like 60 or something. I don't know. The heart rate should increase by 3 to 5 beats per minute. Okay, so 0.5 degrees Fahrenheit, 3 to 5 beats per minute, going up with a healthy metabolism that's burning hot. That's what we're looking for. We want to be using fuel. We want to know that our metabolism is good at burning fuel. Okay, so if your temperature and heart rate go up, that's good food. Good job. If the temperature goes down, heart rate goes down, temperature goes up, heart rate goes down, we're having a cortisol response. So stress response. We're having some inflammation probably from whatever we ate, okay? Not great. If temperature goes down, heart rate goes up, we're having an adrenaline response, a sympathetic response. Okay, that's a threat response. If both go down, we're going to sleep. All right, that's not great. We don't want to be going to sleep after we eat food, right? Food should be energizing. We should be up, ready to go, right? So track these things over time and see the patterns that emerge, okay? If anybody has questions about any of that, throw them in the chat. We can also start a conversation in the community around all this. I know it's going to be a lot of information and new for some stuff. So feel free to throw those in there. Now, gastric distress, low gut motility, right? Food just tends to sit, right? The heart rate or temperature is going down, okay? These are indications that our digestion is not working well. Our metabolism, our digestion needs some help. And one of the best ways to help it is to stimulate the vagus nerve. And these are some really easy drills that you can do to help with your digestion. I love to do these before a meal and then 10 to 20 minutes after a meal. Okay, so we have vagus nerve tapping, ab belt humming, and gargling. All right, we'll do these together real quick. If you have, well, we'll just do the regular tapping first. Take 2 fingers, put them behind your ear on the left side after you do an assessment. See where you're at. Okay, tap 2 inches outside the belly button 5 times. On the belly button 5 times. And then 2 inches outside the belly button on the other side 5 times. Then retest. It's a little sticky for me. Good for Joe. Nice, nice. Okay, let's try the other side. Fingers behind the right ear or the left if you did the right the first time. Same tapping. 5 times on one side of the navel, 5 times on top, 5 times on the other side. Good. Woo, very nice. Cool thing about the vagus nerve is it gets nearest the skin up here behind your ear. Okay, that's why we're kind of touching it here. And then just like an electrical current, we're kind of closing the circuit by tapping down here. A lot of those fibers are down in here. So one side tends to be more sympathetic in its action. One side tends to be more parasympathetic in its action. Not super important for you to know, but can be helpful when we get more into nervous system regulation down the road. Okay, acupressure pen is, I threw mine away because it broke. But you can buy them on Amazon for like 10 bucks. It's like a little electrical zzz, zzz, zappy zappy, we call it. You can use that on your abdomen just for a different input to your vagus nerve. This is called the Z-Vibe. It's actually an oral sensory device that they use for kids with speech problems to help them get more sensation in their mouth. It vibrates at a very high frequency, okay? 110 hertz, I believe. We can use this to stimulate the vagus nerve right behind that ear, okay? 5 to 10 seconds is usually plenty. Good stimulation. You can try both sides. Yep, you can also do this on the abdomen. Or if you don't have an electric toothbrush, can also work, the back of it. If you don't have that, just like Joe's doing, you can take your finger and you can grab right here and just wiggle. Kind of acts like vibration. And that can be a little bit different. Yeah, stimulation, okay? There are all different ways to give inputs to this, to the vagus nerve. Another one. Yeah, better prepared today, is an ab belt. This is a great passive stimulus to the vagus nerve using compression with this neoprene belt. You can get this neoprene waist slimmer, they're often called, on Amazon. There's a million different kinds. This one was like $6. You just give yourself some compression there, and it activates all those receptors down there, again, that innervate into the vagus nerve. Okay, this one's great for stacking with other drills as well, like our next one, humming. Okay, so part of your vagus nerve controls your vocal cords. Okay, so we're going to take 2 fingers right on each side of our vocal cords or our voice box. Okay, right around in here. And you're going to hum deep into your chest. You want to feel it down here. Your fingers are meant to assess what side is getting more vibration than the other. If you notice more on one side, you can tilt your head. You can turn. You can even press in a little bit. To get whatever side more active. Usually about 3 breaths worth of humming. Do chest voice. And then you can retest. Great vagus nerve stimulation. And then the last one is gargling. Not good for Joe on that one. Humming is bad news. Okay. Gargling is the last one. Again, about 30 seconds, just like the humming. So you're just gargling, take a breath when you need, gargle, right? This one also, you can vary up by changing your neck and throat and head position to get different responses. But again, just assess and reassess, write down which ones work for you. Your protocol here for digestive purposes is to do some vagus nerve stimulation before your meal, anytime before, and then 10 to 20 minutes after. That'll kickstart that vagus nerve's responsibility, which is gut motility, getting all of the digestive organs up and running, okay? So after you try those out, write those down in your notebook, which ones were good, and try out some different variations as you do these. All right, so we talked about intolerances, we talked about digestion, ways to help with it. Now, let's talk a little bit about body fat, okay? Because, why do I want to talk about this? Well, because body fat is worse for you than bad food. And I know that's like that's a kind of a crazy statement, right? Because the common thinking now is that eating clean and blah, 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 these are the most important things for your health. And while that is partly true, it doesn't matter as much as eating the right amounts of food, at least in the beginning, okay? And the Twinkie diet, as you see below, is one example of this. There's a guy from Kansas State University, I believe. He lost over 30 pounds by eating nothing but Twinkies. And I think he had some other junk food snacks in there, okay? But his whole point was, and his blood markers, including LDL cholesterol, the bad cholesterol, went down, and his HDL cholesterol went up, which is not something that we would think to see when eating this bad processed food, okay? But the whole point is that he maintained a calorie deficit, he lost body fat, and his blood markers improved. So why is body fat so bad? Well, it's linked to, and this is obesity, and they measure obesity by BMI. According to measures of BMI, I, as a 6-foot male and 230 pounds, am obese. Okay. Now, that does not take into account the lean mass that I'm carrying around, which is more than normal, your average person. So would I consider myself obese? No, not in that sense. We're talking like carrying out an excess amount of body fat and body fat percentage of for women, over 28% body fat is too much. For men, over 18% is too much, okay? And those are my rules. I don't know of a ton of research, clinical research around those numbers specifically, but those are the numbers that I like to see in my, strength and conditioning, personal training, health practice. So anyway, when we get above those, it is shown that obesity will kill your attention, your executive function. Your frontal lobe actually starts to atrophy the more obese that we get. So all of those decision-making abilities, verbal learning abilities, all of these things start to take a hit when we are carrying around excess body fat. It's a stress on our system. Our survival brain is more active and more of a priority for the fuel and feeding when we are carrying more body fat. So we don't get as much fuel to the frontal lobe, which is where we have all of our high order abilities. Okay. So without, beating the dead horse, the body fat is a performance killer. So we need to get the body fat down first and foremost. All right. Tips to do it: track your calories. You can't manage what you don't measure. All right. Track it for 3 days, track it for a week. Get an idea of where you're at and where you need to adjust. Getting 10,000 steps a day boosts your neat non-exercise thermogenesis activity. So it will boost your energy expenditure, so the calories out, without spiking your appetite like a really heavy, intense workout will do. All right, we tend to overeat after a hard workout. If you're getting a lot of that neat activity, which is non-exercise activity, you're going to boost a lot of that energy expenditure without spiking the appetite. 3, eat high volume, low calorie foods like veggies. Keeps you full. It's not super palatable, so you're not going back for more and more and more and more and more, like if you were on the Twinkie diet. Okay. The easiest way to put on body fat is to eat really highly palatable foods, right? You eat one Lay's chip, you eat the whole bag because they're so good, right? That's dangerous. That's the easiest way to get fat, right? We know this, but avoiding those and choosing the high volume, low calorie foods are just an easy way to keep you full and to stay lean. Narrow your feeding window. Go for a time restricted feeding window of 8 to 12 hours. You're going to naturally eat less calories and get into a restricted state if you can do that. And then you can throw in sporadic prolonged fasts. Okay. Now, a word on fasting: don't do it if you have a propensity for an eating disorder. Okay. If you have ever experienced or dealt with bulimia before, do not jump into fasting. Talk to your doctor first. It's a real danger for people to stop eating for 2 days and then just binge and think that they can just go on a fast again. That can be really unhealthy. Fasting should be used as a tool, and it should be very intentional when you do it. Okay. Now, we're just going to hit on this for 1 minute because it's so important, and we all know it, but most of us fail miserably when it comes to hydration. And I put this quote up there because I just love it. It's actually from Stephen Collar. He says, the only way to get smarter in 30 seconds, drink water. Because even a tiny drop in our hydration status will affect every process of your body, and most of all, your cognition. Right? And if you are getting thirsty, you've waited too long. If you're getting hungry, you may actually just be thirsty. Drink a glass of water. Okay. What you should aim for half your body weight in ounces per day. That's a starting point. A hard workout, you need to drink about 30 ounces more. Make sure you're getting those and you're getting some electrolytes in the morning. Really simple things to do. Remember those 1% things? If we stack those up, hydration is so key. Okay, now how does the brain work? Well, it needs fuel. Fuel for the brain comes in 2 forms. Okay, now just like a fire, we need fuel and then oxygen to create flame, right? If we take away oxygen from this, that fire just goes out. If we don't have wood, we got nothing to burn. We need both. The brain works the same. Our fuel are these little sugar cubes, okay? Glucose. And then to create that fire, we need oxygen. Those are the two fuels for the brain. So we've talked about this briefly before, but this is how the brain feeds itself. Okay, it starts at the bottom and the back goes up and to the front. We start at the survival centers down here. Those are the most important. Okay, heart rate, blood pressure. If we don't get fuel, which is blood flow and sugar, to these areas, we die. That's simple. If you don't breathe, you die. Okay, so we will always prioritize those first. Then we come up to the cerebellum, this little wrinkly spot back here. We call that the little brain. That's where our balance and our basic movements live, our rote movements that we already know how to do, procedural memories. In fact, this is where flow happens, right? The cerebellum gets a ton of activity jump in flow. That's going to be next on the hierarchy. If we can't balance and move around, right, just even in a survival way, we're not going to last very long. Then we get up here to our sensory processing centers, our visual cortex back here, temporal cortex over here, auditory and balance and vestibular stuff, then parietal lobe, all our sensory inputs from our body, right? Those get fuel next in the hierarchy. And then lastly, the frontal lobe. That's the last thing to get fuel. It's the least important survival from a survival standpoint. So it's going to be last on the hierarchy. And this is where our inhibition sits, which really overrides our survival instincts. So this is where our decision making comes in, where we can be rational. And if you've ever gone to the grocery store and you're super hungry and you just can't control yourself and you're just getting all this junk food and like you're not making logical decisions thinking about your future health, that's because your survival brain is running the show, right? It's not getting the fuel to the frontal lobe where you can make better decisions. Okay? So now that we know how our brain fuel and feeding pattern works, we're going to look at a few of the things that really help move the needle for the brain. And this is coming from this pro-metabolic eating philosophy. If you want to look into it, Dr. Ray Peat is kind of the pioneer and has written all the original books and stuff around this kind of way of eating. Really fascinating guy. And ask me for recommendations if you want some reading material. But anyway, this is all about fueling the brain optimally. And so we have healthy nervous system and neurons so they can function at their best. And these vitamins right here, these are like the top vitamins that we need and minerals that we need in order for that function to happen properly. Okay? And we're not going to go into deep detail. I'm just listing them here for one reason, and I'll talk about it in a second. And then our hormones, right? When these are out of whack, like when our thyroid is not functioning properly, we're not getting energy production in the brain at our optimal levels. When we have too much estrogen, right? With low testosterone, high estrogen from xenoestrogens in the environment and our cleaning products, from eating a lot of gluten-heavy foods or even drinking a lot of IPAs, right? Hops. These things start to increase estrogen and lower progesterone and testosterone. Not great. It leaves us in a high hypervigilant state, right? Because it's very excitatory, and those neurons don't know how to turn off, and it can become toxic over time. Okay, progesterone actually protects against estrogen and increases the fuel availability in the brain. So a really important hormone, not just for the ladies. Okay, and then allopregnanolone is a downstream effect or a downstream process after progesterone and estrogen that increases GABA, which is a inhibitory neurotransmitter that just kind of calms things down in the brain, so that neurons are not overexcited often. Okay, so here are the tools. Those previous slides are great. They're for your reference if you want. The amazing thing is that most all of these vitamins and minerals can be found in one awesome place called beef liver. It's an incredible superfood that you can add into your diet and cover a lot of those bases. Okay. It's an acquired taste. And to be honest, when I started, I basically just took it like a shot, like an oyster. Just 1 ounce is pretty small. You can work yourself up to 4 ounces. Okay. Aspirin is also a really helpful addition that can prevent some of the lipooxidation that happens with polyunsaturated fats. All right, and a note on the PUFAs. Polyunsaturated fats, which tend to show up a lot in like seed oils. These are unsaturated fats that oxidize easily. So oxidization is not good. Think of like rust. When iron oxidizes, it turns into rust. If we have these unstable, unsaturated fats floating around in us that are available for oxidization, that tends to wreak havoc on our system, causing a lot of inflammation, and it can be bad news. So keeping those levels of polyunsaturated fatty acids low is really helpful for brain health and just health in general, but keeps inflammation down. So get rid of the seed oils if you can. Stick with like extra virgin olive oil, coconut oils, those type of things. You're gonna get some PUFAs, but if you can keep it low to like 1 gram per 500 calories, you're gonna be doing good. Okay. Aspirin can help actually stop the process of the oxidation of those fats. Okay, so just taking a small amount of aspirin, like a baby aspirin every day, can be helpful for that. Obviously, don't do that if you have contraindications to blood thinners like aspirin. Talk to your doctor if you need to. Coffee blocks iron absorption, and too much iron that accumulates can also oxidize and become really harmful for the system. Taurine is an amino acid involved, helpful for nerve health. If you're getting a lot of protein, you should be good on that. But I just wanted to list it here for your reference. And then the greatest supplement of all time, creatine monohydrate. It's not the greatest, but it's definitely the most researched and the safest supplement by far, and many, many positive benefits. For our context here, it increases ATP in the brain. That's our energy molecule, okay? It helps with giving us more energy in the brain, and then it has all those other benefits down below the neck as well. So once you've taken care of the big rocks, avoiding intolerances, getting your digestion fixed, macronutrients, calories in versus calories out, handled, the ratio taken care of, then you want to start adding things like the beef liver, right? The coffee, you can drink that anytime, but the creatine, right? Look at the PUFAs coming in, look at your taurine intake. And that kind of brings us to this word on supplements. The whole point here is that you got to take care of these big rocks first, okay? And then you can start looking at these things. And I just pulled this, sorry. No, I got to get out of here to show you. I just pulled this graphic just to show you like the amount of evidence that's actually um, available out there. I don't know how to zoom in. So above the line here, how much evidence? We got strong evidence for gallbladder and blood pressure, right? Look at the things that they've studied that actually have good or strong evidence for them, right? There's not a ton as far as what we're looking at and what can actually move the needle. Okay. And then look at all this stuff that has inconclusive, slight, or even no evidence. All this stuff that we're being, just thrown at us all the time. There's very little evidence for it. So at the end of the day, take care of the big things first. add the little things and see how they work. And if you have questions about it, save your money, save your wallet, and go look at examine.com. Type in anything you want to use, anything you want to look up, and it will list where it's been tested, what it'll interact with, and it's a really, really helpful resource when it comes to supplements. Okay. Man, we actually busted through that faster than I thought. Good job, everybody. So, your growth work for nutrition and hydration. Take care of the big stuff first. Remove the intolerances, especially the polyunsaturated fatty acids. Okay, do a quick Google search for what they are and start taking those things out of your diet or limiting them as much as you can. Seed oils, right? I don't actually recommend taking a fish oil supplement if you are taking one, just because it gets exposed to air and it's an unstable fat. And there's a good chance that the fish oil that you're getting has been oxidized because it's been sitting around to open air at some point. So remove the intolerances first, elimination diet. If you need to, track your food with an app like Chronometer. I like Chronometer because it lists out way more data than MyFitnessPal or some of the other ones out there. And you can look at, based on the food that you eat, where am I kind of slacking or missing with the vitamins and minerals, because it will list those. Also try out the heart rate and temperature to see what your metabolic response is to the food that you eat. Okay. Keep water always on hand. Always have a water bottle with you. All right. Always have something close by where you can keep sipping on water all day long. Aim for half your body weight in ounces to start, more if you're working out hard. Then, once you've taken care of the big rocks, implement some brain care strategies. Add some aspirin. Use your coffee. Add some creatine. Try the taurine and try the beef liver. Okay. And once you have the big rocks taken care of, you got them dialed in. You're losing weight if that's what you're looking for, or you're gaining if that's what you want. Your hydration's on point. Your sleep's great. Like, all of these big rocks are taken care of, right? Then we can start looking closer at your blood markers, where you're missing the boat on vitamins and minerals, and start trying some supplementation strategies, or just looking at different foods that can get you there. It's always going to be better to eat real food to get the nutrition that you need. Okay. So that is it for today.